Nick Reiner, son of famed Hollywood director Rob Reiner, making his first appearance in a Los Angeles courtroom this morning after being arrested on suspicion of murder in connection with the deaths of his parents. The tragedy puts Nick's long history with drug addiction and mental health struggles back into the spotlight. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno, here with my co-host, Kaylee McEnany. And also joining us today, Cheryl Casoni, Fox Business anchor and host of American Dream Home on Fox Business, Dr. Nicole Saphier, Fox News contributor and board-certified physician, and Sergeant Dakota Meyer, Marine Corps veteran, Medal of Honor recipient, and founder of The Bluff on Substack. Now, Nick Reiner was arrested Sunday night, a few hours after his parents were found stabbed to death in their Brentwood home. He was initially arrested on suspicion of murder and held on a $4 million bail, but his status was quickly changed to no bail after police say he is the one responsible for his parents' murders. TMZ revealing this, more details about the night before the murders, where Nick and Rob reportedly got into a, quote, very loud argument. Loud enough, in fact, for other people to hear at a holiday party at Conan O'Brien's home. Nick has been upfront about his struggles with addiction and even homelessness, and worked with his father to turn those experiences into the movie Being Charlie. Rob said working on the project brought the two closer together. Watch.
You don't set out to have a cathartic experience or you know, this will be therapeutic in some way, but the fact that we were dealing with, you know, things that Nick had gone through and how I had related to it and how his mother had related to it, it forced me to have to see more clearly and understand more deeply what Nick had gone through. And I think it forced him to see things that I had experienced during this process. And it definitely brought us closer together.
Some of Reiner's neighbors have spoken about Nick's troubled history, with one telling the Post, this is not the first time their son has been violent. A family friend adding more detail. Watch.
I think he was sort of in and out of the home, not really particularly living there. Yeah, I know there's reports, oh, he was living on the streets at the time, he was homeless, but that kind of goes along with the issues that folks like he deal with.
Dakota, just tragedy upon tragedy here, and with so many more questions, of course.
Yeah, you know, I think that this is something that is so relatable across, you know, in every household. Is at what point as a parent do you have to start worrying about this, you not being able to be the solution for this, right? I mean, you talk about this, you know, families are struggling with trying to help out their children or that aspect of it. You know, I relate back to this and not to this concept of it, but like, you know, coming home and struggling with mental health as we're seeing across our nation right now, but then looking at your children struggling, right? Like this is every parent's fear right here of being able to how do you figure this out? How do you help them? But how do you also make sure that they're getting the help that they need? And that might not be you, right? And it's such a terrible tragedy that ended, and it's so terrible, right?
Yeah. Such a great point. And Doctor, that sort of tees up something that we wanted to show here, which is Rob Reiner talking about that he says, you know, look, I was listening to the people with PhDs and diplomas on the wall. I was listening to the doctors. And he said, but maybe I should have listened to my son. Let's play that.
What about when you wrecked the guest house on meth? You don't want to tell that story?
Yeah, I went 10 rounds with my guest house. It's not much of a story. I got totally spun out on uppers. I think it was coke and something else, and I was up for days on end, and I started punching out different things in my guest house.
Okay, so that was a different point, but that is illustrating or underscoring that Nick indeed had this violent history, that he himself is talking about destroying the guest house. But the point that I wanted to draw to you guys is again, the dad, Rob Reiner, talking about Nick's time in drug rehab. And he told the Los Angeles Times back in 2015 this, he said, when Nick would tell us that drug rehab wasn't working for him, we wouldn't listen. We were desperate. And because the people had diplomas on their wall, we listened to them when we should have been listening to our son. Doctor, your thoughts on that?
You know, something I say to patients every single day is, you know your body better than anyone else. And although I can't see something that is wrong right there, if you're telling me something has changed, something is wrong, then we have to keep going because, again, you know better than anyone else. And when it comes to children, parents know their children best. And, you know, we like to think that money and access will protect our children. But the reality is data show otherwise. And actually, children who are born in privilege are more likely to have risky behaviors. And that is from fewer boundaries, less supervision, and this false sense of invincibility. And so when you grow up without limits, you try to find limits and you push those limits, and often in dangerous ways. And so the fact that his son, Rob Reiner's son, you know, started experimenting with drugs in his teens, that is not uncommon. And from that, I guess it sounds like that the parents were trying to be strict with him, saying, if you don't go to rehab, which is what the experts are saying, then you can't live in our house. And that is how he had subsequent bouts of homelessness. And it just sounds like he has had decades of substance abuse. You know, there have been talk about mental illness. I don't know that he has anything that has been diagnosed in him, but obviously has likely suffered from depression, anxiety. And while most people who have substance abuse issues are not violent, 40% of all violence involves some sort of substance, whether it's alcohol or drugs. That one, what we heard him talk about on the podcast where he destroyed the guest house, he said he was high on meth. So is it possible that the son was high at that holiday party the night before and something ensued afterwards? Absolutely. It is devastating. You've already heard President Trump. He is trying to tackle drugs in this country because drugs affect more lives than just about anything else right now. And this is just devastating all around.
Yeah. It's hard, Cheryl, you know, I confess, as a human, I think about the chemical nature of drugs, and you think about whether it was the drugs that did it and the drugs that sought more drugs to satiate these neural pathways, and it's like I have no control over it. But I can't, as a society, think that we can anyway excuse or explain murder, patricide, in such a violent, horrific way with, well, I was high, or he had problems. And I really struggle with that because I have compassion as a Christian, but as a member of society, I mean, how do you adjudicate this?
Well, I was listening to Josh Ritter on Harris's show, and he said this will likely be first-degree murder. The death penalty could be on the table for him, although this is California, to be clear. But something that you said, I think, really struck me, because no matter how much money or power or influence that you have, this can happen to you and your family and your children. And it's heartbreaking what has happened to the other siblings, the other two daughters and the other son. But I was looking at the stats. You know, 49 million Americans last year documented cases of substance abuse. That's alcohol and that is drugs. 20 to 25% of those people get treatment. That's it, 20 to 25%. So this is happening across the country to families across the country. On another scale, I remember covering I'm going back to O.J. Simpson. I don't think that Los Angeles and the Hollywood community has seen something like this since that murder case. And this is something that's going to be at the forefront of our television screens and our psyche and the conversation, possibly for years, depending on how long this case plays out. We're going to learn a lot more horrific details. We're going to learn a lot more sad details. And it just makes me hope that maybe somebody out there looks at what happened to the Reiners and says, maybe I need to look back at my child. What else can I do for my son or daughter that's struggling with addiction?
And Kaylee, I wanted to come to you on this, which is just the unconditional nature of a father's love for their children. And we know that love for our Heavenly Father. And I think it's hard for anyone to encapsulate or even describe how infinite that love is. And so as we talk about decisions that dads make and mothers make about their children in addiction, the reality is all of their decisions come from love, and they're doing the best that they can. And I think about the book Beautiful Boy by David Sheff, a father's journey through his son's addiction. It was a widely popular book. I think it was made into a movie too. The son ended up writing his own book, and it was incredibly detailed and exhausting in the pattern of no matter what this loving, well-intentioned, educated, wealthy dad, you know, my point is all the opportunity that he would have and give to his son was just in that cycle. And it was a really horrific one. So my point is, you know, regardless of Rob having that sentiment to say, like, I should have listened to him. I mean, they did the best they can with that incredible love. And to have your child be the one that murders you feels It feels horrific.
Yeah, Rob Reiner definitely loved his son. Steven Zaitchik is a reporter for The Hollywood Reporter, and he went to a dinner with the Reiners. This was 10 years ago, it was in 2015, and he almost didn't go to the dinner. He said he was at the Toronto International Film Festival. He had 10 other events, and someone said to him, go to this dinner. It was right when Rob Reiner's son, Nick's movie was coming out. So he goes to this dinner, and he sits there, and he left, and he said it was a heartwarming dinner, but it was a jarring dinner. And now he's writing about it in hindsight 10 years later. And this guy, like, encyclopedic memory, because he remembered, like, exactly verbatim sentences that were said. But one of the things he remembers Rob Reiner doing is beaming. And he looks at his son, who's then 22 years old. He had been to rehab 18 times as a 22-year-old, going all the way back to 15 years old. And he said, can you believe this boy? And he's beaming, and he has so much pride and so much love for his son, Nick. And then one thing he says, and this is near the end of the dinner, it's now in hindsight quite jarring. It was very hard, Rob said. The number one job of any parent is to keep their child safe, and I had not done that. He was almost tearing up, and now here I have done that. I kept him safe. His words were, he came out alive. And the reporter says, as it turns out, Nick was the one who came out alive, and Rob is saying that not knowing he's the one that is going to end up losing his life alongside his wife. There are a lot of stories like these we're going to hear. And also he notes that the daughter was at the dinner, and the daughter was a proud sister, called Nick her best friend. But he sensed something inside of her that just said, maybe this is a little too much. And now 10 years later, that daughter, who is so proud, finds that her best friend, her brother, has killed her parents. It is crushing. Rob clearly loved his son, to your point. And we'll follow this because more details are going to break by the moment. A very sad situation.
It's unimaginable. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.